And we're back with example number 2 on that exact same word problems with system of equations, introduction, activity. All of these questions correspond to the Canvas activity, so just keep that in mind. Here we are with number 2, where instead of 35 coins, our total now is 102 coins. So we've got quite a few more coins in our collection, but our collection is only made up of pennies and dimes. So now we have to kind of start transitioning our brain into thinking about a penny. I know that each penny is only worth 1 cent. As a decimal, 0.01. Keep your decimals and all your zeros really in place here with pennies and dimes. 1 penny, 2 pennies, you can see using Desmos what each one of those is worth. So if I'm asked what the value of 3 pennies is, I'm going to do 3 times 0.01, 3 pennies, 3 cents, or 3/100ths of a dollar. The next coin that we're looking at is dimes. So similar to a penny because we're going to use a 1 and a 0, but it's important to mention that a dime is worth a lot more money than a penny. So a penny is worth 0.01 or 1 cent, but a dime is worth 10 cents. So as a decimal, they're opposite decimals, 0, 1, and then 1, 0. It's worth mentioning that it's going to be easy to make mistakes in a calculator. If I know each dime is worth 10 cents, I can multiply the number of dimes by 10 cents, and that's how I can figure out that 3 dimes is worth 30 cents. This is the exact same kind of math I'm going to continue to use, but our coin collection is much bigger. We're at 102 coins, so we need to make sure that always our total of coins is 102. In the first row of our problem, we're told that we start out with 65 pennies in this particular set of 102 coins. 65 being multiplied by 1 cent is just 65 cents. So the penny is a little bit more straightforward than maybe the nickel or even the quarter. The next thing that I want to figure out though is if I have 102 coins in my collection and 65 of them are pennies, I know the value of 65 pennies. What I need to figure out is how many dimes are there, 37, and then I need to figure out how much 37 dimes are worth. So if each dime is worth 10 cents, 37 dimes are worth $3.70. This next step functions exactly as it did in problem 1, so I need to add the two monetary values together. 65 cents being added to $3.70 gives me a grand total of $4.35. So it doesn't matter what coin you're given or how many of those coins there are. It matters that you're able to figure out the value of the coin and that you're able to multiply it by the right number. So that's the biggest challenge here, is going to be place value and using decimals correctly. Let's move on to the second row where we're told that there are 83 dimes. 83 dimes are going to be worth $8.30 because I multiply by 0.10. If there are 102 coins in the collection and 83 of them are dimes, I need to start with that 102 and subtract out 83. That leaves me with 19 coins, and there are only pennies and dimes in my collection, so those 19 coins have to be pennies. Multiplying 19 by 0.01 gives you 0.19. Not surprising that a collection of pennies is not worth that much money. Now if I want this total, I need to add these two values together. So 19 cents being added to $8.30 ends up giving me my grand total for the second row, which is $8.49. You can see the big difference when we have a lot more dimes versus a lot more pennies, how our value changes rather drastically, and I think that's kind of something that's interesting to look at. We're halfway through our second chart, so we're moving right along. In this third row, we have 9 pennies in our collection of 102 coins. I know that each penny is worth 0.1 or 1 cent, so 9 pennies are going to be worth 9 cents. That's going to be the very first thing that goes in my second row or my second column of the third row. or it's third column of the third row. There are 102 coins total in my collection. So if 9 of them were pennies, that means that the remaining 93 of them must be dimes because those are the only kind of coins I have in my collection. Each dime is worth 10 cents. So I multiply 93 by 0.10 and I end up with a monetary value of $9.30. When I add together the value of the pennies and the dimes in that third row, I end up with 0.09 plus 9.3, which gives me a grand total of $9.39. This combination is actually pretty similar to the one that we just did, so you can see how trading those 10 coins around, it didn't do a whole lot. It did do a little bit to the value, but it didn't do anything crazy. And then look at us, we're ready for our very last row. We have the dimes. All right, this time we're told there are 27 dimes. When we have dimes, we know that each dime is worth 10 cents, so that's a cash value of $2.70. In a coin collection that has 102 coins, if 27 of them are dimes and the remaining of those coins are pennies, then we subtract out the 27 dimes and we end up with 75 pennies. So now what we're looking at is if we know that we have pennies and dimes and we have 75 pennies, I multiply by the monetary value of a penny and I end up with 75 cents. So before we try to write our equation, the last thing we have to do is add these two values together. 0.75 adds to 2.7, and together those give you your grand total of $3.45. And this gives you the chance to look at what an equation might look like. What we did was we found out how many of each coin there were and multiplied them by their value. So how many pennies there were, multiplied by the value of a penny. Then we had to add that to the number of dimes being multiplied by the individual value of each dime. So you're multiplying two things that are related. And that's how we ended up with our monetary value, is knowing how many of each coin you have and how much each coin is worth. More traditionally, I would stick with an X and a Y probably, and I would say you've got 0.01X is being added to 0.10Y. Be careful with those decimals. And that's how you would end up with your total. I'm just going to use a dollar sign, or you can write the word total if you prefer. And that's what a collection of 102 coins could possibly look like in a lot of different ways.